As I've come into the city, driving through yesterday afternoon, I just thought, wow, okay, there's still a lot of holes here.
There's a lot of holes and there's a lot of car parks. So when you walk, you suddenly realise, oh yeah, that's like a empty lot. That's considered progress because it's no longer a scruffy old dirt damaged building, but it's a car park, which I guess is not. And then there's quite a few office blocks that have gone up that really they haven't sort of reached potential. Like there was one by the square that I just sort of had a look back to when it opened, and it was, I think, 2018. It still doesn't have anything at the bottom.
Kia ora, I'm Sharon Brett-Kelly, and today the detail is in Christchurch with RNZ's Rachel Graham. We're standing by the Bridge of Remembrance on Cashel Street.
So, I mean, if you wanted, we could do a wander down, that way, and I thought maybe we could go look at some of the bad spots, which are sort of further that way a little bit.
Okay.
And then do a little bit of a link round. Does that sound perfect?
It's more than a decade since the big earthquake flattened much of the central city, and I'm here to find the gaping holes, the infamous Dirty 30, what's new, what works, and what's happened to the red zone. We begin our walking tour at the Riverside Market, one of the success stories of the rebuild. Hi. Could I have a large latte to take away, please?
And I'll have a flat white, thanks.
Is that one of the, across the road
This
there?
is all new too, basically. This is the Justice Precinct,
That's
they call
right.
it. So it's the court, police and the emergency services, St John based here as well. So,
and that's been quite controversial over the years because of the budget blowout.
Budget blowouts and then problems after the budget blowout.
Costing $300 million, it was expected to have opened back at Easter, but the project's been
besieged by delays, would cost Fletchers an extra $100 million.
I mean, this might show you that we were a little desperate for progress in Christchurch. When it opened, they had an open day, which I thought, that might be sort of interesting. We'll go and come along, and there was massive queues, so there was absolutely queues everywhere. Yeah, to wander around basically an office. Yeah, it was like, yeah.
And that is what would you call it? One of the
anchor projects.
Project.
Yeah, that's right. So we had the anchor projects with a big announcement, and they did get delayed, and some of them are still waiting to see what happens with them. And
are they?
Yeah. So I mean, there's some that sort of never sort of reached what they were going to be. There was sort of a technology area they were talking about, but I guess it's difficult to. Doesn't matter what the government sets up. You need the businesses to turn it into a
so that
technology centre.
Work out.
It hasn't reached the potential of what they said it was going to do.
No.
There's some of them that have, they've done and that really are successful. I mean, the Margaret Mahy Playground would attract huge numbers of kids and probably people back into the central city who wouldn't normally, who maybe it wouldn't be on your radar. The stadium was one of them, and but that's certainly been a long delayed and controversial one too. So
right.
Yeah.
Christchurch's stadium's really turning into a mess, isn't it? It's now projected to cost $200 million more than originally planned, closing in on $700 million. It's also been pushed back again to April 2026.
And now they have cleared the land now, so we're at that point with the stadium. So
it's going to happen.
Yes, it's going to happen, yeah. And I guess there's the issues of whether it has a roof or not. I think they're on with a roof at the moment. There's now debate about doing up the streets around it because, as it turns out, that's going to cost another sort of, $20 million, something. I can't remember exactly how much, but a lot just to do up the streets around the outside. And the new mayor has sort of been on the fence about whether it's necessary or not, those sorts of things.
As you covered the news, the stories on the rebuild over the years, does it feel like everything's been a battle, a struggle?
Yes, and everything's been delayed. Everything. I think you get to quite, sort of cynical about timelines, and it did get to the point where, we had the ministers in charge of various projects just wouldn't talk about timelines anymore. They wouldn't nail things down because, we would have a sellotaped in our office about when they said things were going to happen, and that would come and go. So, it certainly has felt like there's a lot of things that have been. There was a big talk. There was so much sort of talk about what was going to happen, and I think it was probably needed because there was a lot of uncertainty. As I say, there was a couple of years when central Christchurch looked like a bomb site. It just was literally just a demolition zone. So you needed to get that sort of enthusiasm, to get people hopeful about what the central city was going to. I guess for those investors, the shop owners, the people whose offices were going to be rebuilt in the central city. But if we head over this way, do you want to head over and see a little bit more of our, maybe the work in progress sort of area?
Yeah, let's do that.
Right. So up here ahead of us, we've got the Restart Mall, which was the containers, which we had for quite a while as well.
Have they gone now?
Yep, so that's basically where Riverside is.
I see. So Riverside was where all the containers
were? Yes, the container, the Restart Mall.
Okay.
That's right.
But I did notice coming in yesterday afternoon that there are, I can see it right ahead of me actually on Litchfield. There's a very old building.
Yes.
And then there's stacks of shipping containers in front of it. What's that about?
Oh, well, that is to stop it from falling on the street if there's another aftershock or earthquake. So, and that has been there for years. So,
what is the building?
What did that used to be? It used to be an area, there was Soul Square at the back. I think it was a nightclub there. There might have been an office. It is one of the ones that apparently is... the work is underway at the moment, and that it's not far off. I think that it was going to be a hotel.
Right, so they're restoring it. Yes, it's got a very old facade on it, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, But again, you sort of get used to it. Drive by it all the time.
Yeah, and I suppose it's, as you say, it's kind of propping up the building while it's being fixed. There's no fear of it tumbling onto the street.
No, that's right. And that's one of the things when a couple of times I've spoken to council people who are involved in the process, they will try and emphasise the fact that often there's a lot going on behind the plastic wrap and the scaffolding and the containers. And I guess that's inevitably going to be it, that you're going to keep it as safe as possible until that moment that they come down and you'll be like, wow, that's actually a finished building. That one has taken a long time, so...
Yeah, well, what is it now? It's 12 years since the...
11, really. So we had the first one in September 2010, what we thought was the big one, which actually caused very little damage around the central city. We were really sort of complimented ourselves on how well everything was built, and, it was because it was a really massive earthquake. It brought down... There was a big debate about one building in Manchester Street that was quite badly damaged, owned by Richard Peebles, who is one of the investors with Riverside. And there was a big debate about whether he could knock it down or not. A lot of heritage advocates really didn't want it to be brought down. The February 2011 earthquake resolved that.
It struck at 12:51 in the afternoon, lunchtime, with many people on the streets around here. It caused widespread damage to buildings and infrastructure already weakened by a powerful quake 5 months earlier.
So really, when you look around town, all of this is new. Everything's new.
Wow. And what do people say about the redevelopment, about these new buildings? I mean, some of them are good-looking buildings, aren't they?
Well, I think the bus exchange doesn't get a lot of love. A lot of people
well, bus exchange does.
No, that's true. People do miss the old buildings that we had, I guess. Like some of them heritage buildings, some of them cheaper buildings that you didn't really think much about, but had a bit of charm, I guess, if you wanted. But they also had very dangerous facades and the parapets and stuff that actually turned out to be really dangerous for people walking down the street. So you have that issue of deciding what do you hold on to that's going to take you 10 years and it's still got a row of containers and scaffolding, or do you knock it down and put up something that's maybe a little bit more utilitarian but is there and usable?
What we're looking at ahead down the street is kind of interesting because you've got that building and then a bit further on there's a big mural on a building ahead, and that's something that also typifies Christchurch now, I feel, isn't it? The artwork.
I do think they've made a real effort to try and brighten up some of those pretty grim spaces. We've got another one coming up here that you can see over here with a girl blowing a great big bubble. They are quite beautiful, and I think they do make, when you're going to have a blank wall like that for so long, the fact that they've opened that up and brought in some local artists, often they're local artists that are doing them, so it's great to see a grey wall transformed in an afternoon, which sometimes the council will let people know, and over a weekend you can come and have a look.
But this ever-changing cityscape is bamboozling,
So this is,
even for a long-time resident like Rachel.
what did that used to be? I can't even, I mean, that's not the Odeon Theatre. No, the Odeon Theatre's over the next one. So we could,
Okay.
we can't cut down there, but we could go around the corner.
Yeah.
Now, we can peer over there, but we won't be able to get through, I don't think. But see, I guess when you look around here, as I say, I'm thinking, we're moving along, but we're in pretty much the heart of central Christchurch, and we've got, a blank section over here and a blank section over here. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that building there, that really large one just over there, that is a completely empty building, and it has been ever since the earthquake. So it hasn't come down. I think that is on the Dirty 30 list, actually.
Tell me about the Dirty 30.
The Dirty 30. So about 4 years ago, the council publicly identified 30 buildings which they put on this list. They didn't call it the Dirty 30 list. That was more of the local newspaper gave it that name, a pretty snappy name. But they are basically saying that people that owned these buildings would need to take action, otherwise the council was going to get tough on them.
Councillor Jamie Goff is pushing for the owners of 30 derelict buildings, the Dirty 30, to be shamed publicly and forced to repair or replace their earthquake-damaged buildings.
Some people feel that they're being threatened by the council. Good, they are being threatened by the council. If they have genuinely got an insurance payout and they can't be bothered contributing to the rebuild, I hope they feel threatened because they deserve to be.
The council had some of its own buildings on that list, so I guess you've got a slightly difficult situation, and I guess it identifies how complicated some of these things are. I guess in some ways that identification, that being put on a public list where they described them as barrier sites, and they said that they would update it regularly on the website and putting out information about how things had gone, and they said that they would take enforcement action if they didn't see enough progress. Last time I spoke to the council, they had only done that to one building owner. I think there's 17 still on the list, and there is only 3, though, that they say there's been no progress on.
Did you say they did have a deadline for doing something about them? Oh,
no deadline. Just hanging over them the fact that if you don't do more, we will take action. And to be honest, that action was a little vague as well. So we've got the tram coming past us right now. That's a big moment when they got the tram back out.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really. I guess it was. It was a long time until they could get the tram going around the central city again.
Well, when did this tram start up again?
I'd say like maybe 2 years ago, about that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not that long then?
No, not that long.
Why did it take so long? Did they have to restore the tracks?
They would have had to restore the tracks, and then there would have been all of these fall zones that they couldn't go past, because there was a lot of stuff there was a long time when you couldn't see up ahead. We've got a cordoned off area.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be that every second corner you'd come across a cordoned off area and you wouldn't be able to get around and you'd go back.
What's it been like for you? I mean, was your home badly affected?
No, we weren't badly affected at all. So I'm in North Brighton, and basically you travel through an area to get to my home. Red zone area, there was a lot of demolition. And, that was pretty awful for a couple of years. It took them till about sort of 2015 to finish all of the demolition. So you had people that were told, probably maybe within a year or so, that they were made these red zone offers. I mean, people would have been torn about whether that's what they wanted or not. But I guess as a solution to get you out of a home that's broken, we're continuing with aftershocks, so you'd have the water liquefaction sort of process, bringing the water up again, flooding streets again, all those sorts of problems. So a lot of people, left.
Yeah.
I think there's 8,000 homes across the red zone that were red zoned. There's one area I come down, Pages Road, and both sides of the roads is red zone, and it's one sort of whole block. And for a long time that was basically derelict buildings. You go from being a neighbourhood one day to, a couple of months later, people moving out, systematically moving out, and then the houses just get left while they slowly demolish them. And that was pretty creepy. You'd come through at night and just this sort of like these houses that looked pretty awful. Now those areas are really lovely. So they've removed the cordons. They're still referred to widely as the red zone, but I go and walk my dog in the red zone all the time. There's different areas.
Are they parks now?
They're basically parks.
Oh.
I've got a 10-year-old son. He thinks of them as parks.
He doesn't
park
know
area.
what they were.
No, he doesn't, though. We talk about it sometimes because they're really interesting spots. So you're in basically what looks like a park, and then there's a road, and then there's also plants where you can tell this is somebody's prized the rose bush or camellia or whatever that's there, and fruit trees. There's a whole lot of fruit trees in those areas. People put out guides about where you can get, feijoas and plums and things at certain times of year. So it's really, I think it's a really lovely positive space now. And I hope it is for some of those homeowners too, because that would be hard for them to be like, this was where we had a family, grew up, and suddenly you had no choice but had to leave. But hopefully the fact that it does feel like really lovely places, they're quite well used. A number of them have like sort of community activities. People get leases from the council. They've got like a drone club uses one area. You don't want to go there when they're, with the dog when they're going, but still remote control cars, various things where people are using the spaces. Because you've got people around rather than a great big empty lot with derelict homes in the corner.
Because it is in the state it's in, half built, still got dilapidated buildings, bits being restored, it makes it quite an interesting, fascinating city, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess that's true. When I did the walk around with more of that view of looking at the buildings rather than just going to my destination, it was like, oh yeah, look at that one and look at this one, and also doing that flip back in your mind of like, what did used to be there, and trying to just remind yourself about what used to be there pre-earthquake.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing with these old government buildings. Look at that. Opened in 1909, and I mean, they seem to be perfectly fine after the earthquake. Did a lot better than many of the 1980s buildings that were really just a liability. All along here is supposed to be residential.
Yeah.
You see, we've got a start on it. The next one, if you look on the website, says coming soon or something sort of non-committal. So, obviously we're seeing a bit of a downturn in the housing market that may be delayed a bit further.
So
but
all that area there is going to be filled with
housing. And so, and behind over there too, the white top buildings,
Gosh,
that's all new.
A lot of housing.
And so the aim for the council is to get to, I think it's 20,000 people living in the central city. And within about sort of 10 years, I think that is the aim, about sort of 2030.
And finally, we are here, the heart of the Christchurch rebuild, the cathedral and the square.
Yeah, it's a bit of a construction site here at the moment, isn't it? So this is fairly new too. To be honest with you, over the years in Christchurch, they always seem to be doing something with the pavers in Cathedral Square. So maybe we're just getting back to where we used to be, that there'll be, people won't like how slippery they are or how shiny they are or something.
Would this be the most vexed project in Christchurch in terms of the rebuild?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the stadium's caused issues, but that's, do you want to do it or not? And this is, the Cathedral Square was always the central point of Christchurch. You do so many events that you do in the square. You might meet up with people there. They'd have various council festivals and things, and now we've got basically a construction site just going on for years and years.
It's a bit of an eyesore, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's getting better. So, so they recently, wasn't too long ago, they first went in with a remote control digger, and they basically cleared out all of that. So it was the first time they could really get in there, because there was that concern about the safety of getting inside.
Yeah.
Cleared out all of the pigeon poo, all of the debris, chairs. Actually also got hold of a whole lot of precious things for the Anglican Church that had basically been left on that day. That people just ran for their lives. There was a lot of talk that people had died in the cathedral, but because it really did look bad, and there was a whole lot of dust, and there was quite a bit of damage to it, but in fact nobody did. But certainly it was one of those buildings that people wanted to steer clear of as much as possible. So,
I mean, has that been resolved yet?
Yeah. So,
I
mean, it has, in terms of the fact that they are restoring it. I think it started out at about 100 million, and maybe now it's at about 150 million that they expect it to cost. I think last time I heard they had about 3/4 of that, and I guess they're on their way, maybe another 10 years. I guess that was one of those things that became very, the church, they were advocating to demolish it. and the bishop at the time and build something new, and then they did hit up against we've got some pretty ferocious heritage advocates in Christchurch, and they've had a hard time, the heritage advocates in Christchurch, wanting to hold on to any of the stuff that actually did survive.
Looks like it's got a way to go.
It's got a long way to go, yeah. I think it's about 10 years that they're saying, and I guess we've seen delays before, so you don't know, do you?
As a resident and someone who's worked here and covered major milestones as well as the controversies and the lack of progress, I suppose, what can you say about Christchurch and the rebuild?
There was times when it felt like it would never feel like it, Christchurch used to be. There's a lot of construction work going on, but it doesn't feel that far off. We can have those moments when you gather for it might be the Buskers Festival or various things it does feel like it used to be in Christchurch. There's things to do in the central city, and you can actually get back to that feeling of normality, when there was a long time when it didn't feel like it. As I say, when I think about those times, anywhere like this that you would have to be, you've got security with you and you've got your hard hat on. The fact that we've got people back again and can actually, they're looking at a bit of a construction site, but you've got a skateboarder over there and you've got some music playing. It does, it feels like maybe it's not all hope is lost, that we can actually get back to the old Christchurch. And maybe we don't want to get back to exactly the old Christchurch.
Well, and you won't. It won't be the old
It'll never be
Christchurch.
the old Christchurch, yeah.
That's it for today. I'm Sharon Brett Kelly. The Detail is public interest journalism funded through NZ On Air and produced by Newsroom for RNZ. You can get us downloaded free to your mobile device every weekday from any podcast platform. Today's episode was engineered by Jeremy Ansell and produced by Sarah Robson. Bonnie Harrison is our associate producer. And thanks to Rachel Graham. Ka kite anō.